we are really excited about the fact that you are able to join us this way, Gabby, and guide us in a bit of a graphics demonstration for this Graphics Academy. And I know, uh, Jack, you will have talked about, but why don't you talk again about why the graphics are important?
Well, it's actually pretty simple. Most of our memory is linked to imagery, and that's how we learn, see, and think about things. So if we limit ourselves to just words, we are causing ourselves our own problem. But if we open up our imaginations and play with imagery, it's liberating. And today, our liberator is Gabby Melnick, Gabitude, the wonder with the procreate Wonder Woman.
Right,
Over
Gabby,
to
a decade ago, you were in a path course and got introduced to graphics and played with it brilliantly. And then we had a pandemic and you started playing with it even more deeply digitally with an iPad. And we're really happy to co-host this with you. And we'll be missing you here on the graphics day, but wanted to be able to bring you in with us. So.
Thank y'all so much. It's fabulous to be here co-hosting with the two people who brought me in and introduced this practice to me many moons ago. I am Gabby Melnick. I am in Atlanta, Georgia. I am also called Gabitude, and I love bringing people's ideas to life through really poppy, snapping, and engaging visuals, right? So that we can use those images to bring change forward and take the next step to where we need to go. And I just love being present and bringing to life everybody's contributions in the room. And I did do that on paper and using marker. And then, like Linda said, during the pandemic, I realized that I needed to give this gift a different way. I needed to show up a different way. I needed to learn how to adapt to an increasingly digital world. So I will be doing all of my demonstrations on my iPad Pro. I use an amazing app called Procreate, which is only available for iPad, but it has completely taken my work and so many others that I know to the next level. So I am so grateful to be able to share in this experience with you all. So without further ado, we're going to do some doodle demos and get a little fun and creative together. And I'm sharing my screen. Awesome. So this is my canvas, and this is how I will be doing the demos. So I would like to invite everyone to grab a piece of paper, or if you do work digitally like I do, grab your digital device for doodling. And let's start by dividing our paper, if you will, our drawing space, into 4 quadrants. And we're going to start today in the top left with a demo of people, right? Because people, that's a big part of what we're doing. There we go. That's better. Okay, so I'm going to do my people in this nice blue. So we have a couple different kinds of people, but really what's important about all of this is finding the style that works for you, right? Because that's really what this is for. So we have stick people, right?
Okay, my boyfriend Jack, you're doing it too, aren't you?
So we have stick people with different emotions, doing different things. And they don't need that much, right? What's important is you show enough so that others know what you're drawing, but it does not have to be that detailed, right, y'all? Like, really just a couple of simple lines can make your stick people tell a whole story or a whole emotion. So that's stick people. And then we also have one of my favorites, star people. So star people are a little different than stick people, but honestly, they're all in the same family. We're all cousins here, okay? And you can make your star people do different things like dancing. With like an arm up there, maybe like an arm down here. And then you can draw some music notes around them. Right? So that's star people. And then we also have heart people. And I like using heart people for big feelings and big emotions, right? So here's a little dude in love. He's got them love eyes. So we got some heart people. And then over the course of me developing my own style, I have what Linda called, and now I use the term, thank you, Linda. I do little swoosher people. So little swoosher people, I'll have a head and maybe an arm or two. And maybe some feet. But it's a swoosher. It may just be a head, it may be the whole body, but it's a person, a little doodle of a person that gives just enough to illustrate a particular feeling or experience, but you don't have to draw the whole body, right? So a couple swooshers might be that little guy. Or this little waving dude. They're really basically enhanced stick figures. But the whole point of this, again, whatever style works for you, that is the one that you need to use. Because the point is not to create a whole perfect rendering of a person that's detailed. The whole point is to have a little doodle that captures the gold, the essence of what's being said, so that you can keep listening and synthesizing what other people are saying, right? So whatever style, pick that, develop it, work on it, and go forth. So we're going to move on from people.
Gabby, before you do, would you,
Yes.
in one of these styles, do an image of a person using a wheelchair?
Yes. And there are a couple different ways to show and demonstrate disability. So I just scrunched that to the top so I could make more room for myself. Great benefit of drawing digitally, right?
Yes, it's not happening on my piece of paper.
Couple ways that you can show disability. Oops. So here I'm doing more of a power chair. And there are a couple different ways to do chairs, right? So that's more of a power chair. And then this might be a manual chair. And then maybe I'm just scrunching these down to make more room. And then we can do maybe this person has a guide dog or a service animal. Here's the vest. Not my best dog, but honestly, you get the picture and that's all you need, right? So it doesn't have to be a perfect dog, but you know, the essence of this character is that they have a guide dog. So let's move to our next quadrant. And let's talk about places and locations. So here are some doodles that I frequently use for a location. We have a little house. Maybe the house has another room to it. And maybe with a little tree. So that's a house. And then an apartment building, right? So we have the structure of it. Maybe we have like a little sidewalk going on here and some bushes. Yeah. And for windows, I'm just doing little kind of C-shaped windows here because it doesn't have to be that detailed. Again, maybe a little tree back here. But see, that's an apartment with a couple little lines. I drew an apartment building, a sidewalk, some trees and shrubs around it. I mean, that's really all you need. So let's go ahead and do a city. And with a city, you can get really creative, right? But it doesn't have to be too detail heavy. You could simply just draw a skyline of buildings. Maybe like a little tower. And that's the top of a city. Another thing that I draw when I'm doing locations is parks, right? So for a park, do the ground and maybe like a little bench up here. Doesn't have to be super detailed. See, that's a very weird bench, but honestly, it doesn't matter because I am more focused on what people are saying than how perfect or not my doodle is, because this is not about perfection. This is about listening and communicating and using images and doodles to communicate a message. So if I'm communicating this message about a cool park that I think that someone thinks is really awesome that they want to visit, I might do some more shrubs and maybe another tree. And that's a park, y'all. Pretty cool. But the point of all of this is my drawings aren't there's not much to them, and yet there's a lot to them at the same time. So those are cities or locations and parks. So some of my favorite things to draw, I will say, are icons. So icons could really be anything, but we're really talking about our visual vocab and developing our visual vocab so that we can be creative in how we're using iconography to convey a particular idea. So what are some icons that I use normally? Well, a big one is a light bulb for ideas, for growth, for imagination, for creativity, right? So doesn't have to be a complicated light bulb. So many different ways of doing light bulbs. So we have the base, and then we have the bulb. And then to be really cool, and really bring the razzle dazzle, then I'll add little embellishing marks to show the brightness. So we have light bulbs. Another thing that people talk a lot about is money or funding or stuff around finances, right? So $1, that's all you got to do is a square. Except I would do the square better, but still. And then we have the little corners. And because I am from Atlanta, Georgia in the US, I'm going to do the American dollar sign in the middle. And if you want to be really fancy and show multiple dollars, you can draw stacks of money too. And now I have a whole stack of money with a few more lines than I originally did. Does not have to be complicated. Another thing is health, right? So for health, or to demonstrate health, what I might do is draw a heart. And inside the heart, I might draw a line to look like a heartbeat, and maybe some of those cool embellisher marks on the sides for a healthy heart. So that's something to demonstrate growth. You can draw a little plant. And you'll see me add these a lot. But I would probably add a couple more embellishments, or what I call pizzazzle, which is razzle dazzle and pizzazz all combined into one word. Pizzazzle, right? So I add some pizzazzle to show growth. But there's a little plant. For money, you could also do a pot of gold. So this is the opening, and this is of the pot. Looks less like a pot, but it's fine. It's fine. And then in the inside, I would do gold. And then you guessed it, I'm going to add those little pizzazzle marks on top. And now we have a pot of gold. And then let's say we also may want to draw a world. I mean, I wouldn't use that for history class, but for graphics, that's all you need. And then so I talked a little bit about pizzazzle. We're going to do a whole thing about pizzazzle. The last quadrant of our little 4 over here is bullets, banners, those embellishments for lists, right? Because there are ways you don't have to just do a boring old list, right? You can liven it up a little bit and add some pizzazzle. And how would you do that? Let's do bullets first. So if I'm doing my bullet, you could do a regular bullet list that many of us have seen before, right? With dots, and we have our text, and that's all well and fine. Or there are so many different ways to do bullets. You could do star bullets. I like to bring these out when people talk about maybe their North Star or their vision or what they're excited about, right? So those are star bullets. You can do square bullets. Doesn't have to be super complicated, right? I also, in terms of pizzazzle, I love using arrows to connect different ideas, right? So there are different ways to do arrows, right? You can do a simple flat line arrow or a skinny arrow like this one. I love doing thick arrows, like kind of bubble arrows. Oops. And then if you do a bubble arrow like this one at the bottom, you can write text inside of the arrow. And you can also do an arrow that has a dotted line. The other thing that I want to show you is how to draw a banner. And I use banners for a bunch of different things. I use them for titles or headings, and we'll talk about lettering in a minute. I love lettering. But to do a banner, you're going to draw the top. And then you're going to draw the base or the bottom. And then you connect the two sides. And then underneath, you're going to make a line like that. And you're going to do another on the other side. And then you're going to come to about the middle point. And you'll just connect the two. And then you're going to come to the corners, the bottom corners on each side, and just do one more line. And now you got a pretty cool banner. And there are so many different ways to do fancy banners. I am still learning them, like scrolls, or paper, or ribbon. There are a bunch of different banners. And I think what I would suggest is you're building your icon library. My favorite friend for helping me build my icon library is Pinterest. Because creators from all over the world have shared their graphic recording icons on Pinterest. So something to look up is bullet icons or graphic recording icons or doodle icons, and start with that search, and have fun going down that rabbit hole, because you will find ideas for days. And just practice. Print them out or pull them up on your screen, look at them, and practice the bullets and the doodles and the banners, right? I definitely learned how to do some fancy banners by looking at Pinterest articles. Pinterest is your friend. Pinterest and Google. So the last thing that I would like to demo, I'm going to make all of these go away. And another really big part of how you organize your content as you're listening is through lettering. So there are different styles of lettering that you can use in a single graphic to help draw people's attention to different areas of your canvas, right? So for titles and headings, I love to do bubble letters, right? Especially for titles. So what are some ways that we can do bubble letters? I like making mine really bubbly, right? So we have B, U, B, B. And those are some quick bubble letters. For headings, I might use a different pen, right? Maybe I'll do like a thicker brush. And then for body text, I try to keep it very simple. And your body text is your everyday text, right? It's not big enough to be a heading or a title, but you want to make sure that people are seeing it. So for a body text, I might use like a regular Sharpie or a regular sized Neuland. Now, I will tell you, straight from the beautiful mentorship and encouragement of the two people that are hosting this, practice, practice, practice your alphabet. The way that I wrote before I started doing graphics is completely different from the way that I write now. Now in my regular writing, whether I'm doing graphics or not, I now use all capital letters because it's what people can read better and it's more legible. Cursive is not your friend. The only time that I will use cursive when doing graphics is when I'm doing something more artistic, but that is not the norm for me, right? The point is for people to be able to read this. And while swoopy letters are beautiful and creative and fun, if no one can read your writing, what are any of us doing here? Right? So the best thing to do would, again, Pinterest, Google, those are your friends. You can look up lettering examples. You can look on Google for free lettering practice sheets for you to print out. There are so many resources online that you can get that are at your disposal, right? So definitely practice writing both capital and lowercase letters over and over again, which is the theme. I mean, all of this is practice, right? I did not start out creating at the level that I am now. And still, I have a lot more to go and a lot more to learn. I practice something every day. And I will say practice looks different on an iPad versus practicing on paper. I did not practice on paper for a long time, and now I'm having to go back and retrain myself how to do that. And it's worth it. So the other thing that I would suggest doing is going on YouTube and finding a quick 3 to 5 minute video and listening for the key points of that video. I find TED Talks are some of the best to do this with, because they kind of lend themselves to gathering takeaways and content like that. I've had a lot of luck doing drills and practicing just by listening to old TED Talks and finding a couple main key themes and doing a doodle for each of them. But that's how you build up your skill set. And it gets easier over time.
Thank you. And there's also a couple things I think it would be so much fun for people to see that you do. Thought bubbles or quote pieces. You can add them right to this.
Absolutely. I definitely use those a lot. Thank you, Linda. I love thought bubbles and comment bubbles, right? You can add a lot of pizzazzle to those to make them come alive, right? So let's pick a fun color. I'm going to do a thought bubble first. I love drawing thought bubbles. So that's a basic thought bubble. And you have the little clouds that, if there were a person right here, imagine this is my very long stick figure, right? I would draw the thought bubble coming out of that person's head. You could also add embellishments to your thought bubbles, that little razzle dazzle to make them come alive. These little embellishment lines, while so simple, do so much for an image. There are also different kinds of thought bubbles. We got circles and squares. And you could also do a thought bubble and a comment bubble together. So the only difference between that, if you're doing a thought bubble or something, would be to add the little comment thing coming out of it. You could also do, it's not really a thought bubble, but if there's like a wow moment, sometimes I like doing one of these. Wow. Kind of like a comic book.
Oh, stay with me on the wow. And I'm wondering if you were just working with icons, how you would do fun or fear or sad, excitement, happy.
Yeah. Emotions. So let's do fun. So with fun, I do a big joyous face. Maybe with the eyes going like, and the eyebrows up and a big smile. Oops, didn't mean to do that. And then maybe I put some arms, right? So that's fun. For fear, I might do maybe like some eyebrows up, like fear or worried. And maybe my arms would be like this, like, uh-oh, or I'm scared. And maybe with another arm, like protecting themselves. Anger. That's when I would put I would make the eyebrows go inward towards the middle. And maybe I would do some hand on my hip action. And maybe some of these embellishments along the side of their face. And sad. Maybe I'd have the person looking down with their arms crossed. And I might do a couple tears. So with a couple of different lines, you can show a breadth of feeling and emotion with your stick figures, because not all of the things that you will be listening to are a happy time or a happy experience or a happy memory. And it's important that we practice drawing different emotions, because at the end of the day, we're all here to capture that particular contribution in the space, right? So it's important that we capture that in our doodles as well.
Thanks so much, Gabby.
Keep
Great.
practicing, lovely people.
Yeah, that was fun. Thank you.
How'd that go? And scene.